Hi everyone, it's time to paint the turkey. I hope you're excited and ready because I am. I'm really excited to do this turkey. So I am gonna get right into this song. This is a pre-recorded, so I can't really say hi to everyone, although I know most of you guys who are here. Maybe I should just list some names and just throw them out there because I know eventually you're gonna be here, right? Anyway, all right, so I'm gonna sing the song. I have camo in my lap. It's a nice day, it's kind of overcast, but it's a good day. So here we go. Here is Melinda McLeod's song, Imagine, by John Lennon. Of course, it's her favorite song ever, but it might not be after I get through with it. All right. Imagine a turkey, his name is Lightning. Look at his lovely head. His snood so long and fleshy. Imagine all the artists painting with joy. Imagine his caruncles. It isn't hard to do. Bumpy and red, his face so blue. Imagine all the artists painting with joy. Ooh, you may say that I am silly, and I'd say that it might be true. Yet nothing brings more pleasure than creating art with you. So there we go. Thank you so much for that. I really, really love that song. On the first session when I sang it, I laughed a lot harder, so I'm kind of getting used to the words, which may or may not be a good thing. Anyway, let's move on and paint some more of our turkey, okay? Here we go. Alrighty. I'm really excited to do this. I will leave the light as it is for now. I may have to change it. So look at that beautiful background. I am so excited about that. I hope you're able to do it before you moved on to this. One thing that happens is when you do the thick paint like we started with, you can kind of see how, yeah, there it is. See, that's kind of a solid. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad thing, but I like it. I just like the whole look of it. I'm really, really happy with it. So let's get going. Get your brushes wet. I'm gonna put my glasses on and let's finish the eye. The eye looks a little bit pale. When we look at the eye here, it's obviously a lot pale. Now I can work a little bit with my printout next to me. So I will go in with my typical black that we use. Paying attention, I will zoom in for you here too. Let's get closer. Closer, closer, closer. Make sure I'm in good focus on that. Move my camera, get ourselves set up. And I will try to see if I need to focus a little bit more. It's a possibility. Wrong way. A little bit more. Do you guys hear my rooster crow out there? Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Close enough, and I think we have a good focus. So before I go on, check out how our manganese blue and our quinacridone gold, look at what that made. The manganese is what has some of the properties that granulate. Isn't it cool? Yeah, and also, but then it granulated up here. I believe I'd have to go back and look, but I think I put the burnt sienna over the top and that granulated over the quinacridone gold. So here we go. Mixing up some burnt sienna. Get the eye back up there. Burnt sienna with our ultramarine blue. And then looking at the shape of the eye, here's our ultramarine blue. Get it nice and dark. I didn't add any paint today. I just wet it. Take out some of the moisture out of my brush because I want to bring it down a little bit. And since there's brown in the eye, I will probably lean the mix more toward blue because together those will make the black color. Okay, so I'm going to get nice and close and look at my painting. I want to leave the warm color on the outside though. Okay, so here we go. Following the shape of what we see. Nice pointed brush. Analyze as you go. Keep looking at your reference photo. I see on here where it gets a little bit lighter, you can't tell too much on the photograph, but in the camera, but you should be able to see that on your photograph. Once we darken this up, it's going to be a lot clearer and a lot more realistic. Right now, as we look at it, it looks like a weird eye, but we really want to keep some of that light burnt sienna and gold showing through. It'll make it look like a more realistic eye. The glow is kind of behind it. Okay, now if I go around the outside of the eye, see where it's dark around the outside? I'm going to go ahead and do that right now too. Whoops. So I'm pretty close for you guys. I hope you can see the detail as we go. Tiny little brush strokes. I want to capture some of that red on the outside of the eye, that purple red. So having that white layer there is actually pretty good. Cheating in a little bit of the black in there. Really pointed brush here, tiny point. You can go smaller brush or get a super pointed. The black on this side just blends in with the eye. Try to keep and save one of your brushes if you have more than a few. Try to keep and save one. Don't like scrub around with it because you'll lose the point that way. Okay, and that eye's coming to life. If you compare the white that we've left to the reflection here, you can clearly see this is blue. So we will be making that blue. And I can see that it's a lot darker in the pupil area. There's a pupil, so I'll just go ahead and drop it in. Make another layer of black while it's still not entirely drying. I know it's going to be darker up into the black here. You can kind of see that little bit of a pupil there, but we don't need to worry about that right now. Okay, so we've got that going. It gets quite a bit darker right here too. It's not entirely black, but you see how I made it darker? So now I'm just looking at the values as I'm heading out from the eye now. This is white, and I'm not going to touch that. It does get bluer, rinsing the brush, it does get bluer along here. That's where it rounds up so that the form happens. So I'll go ahead and get into some manganese blue. I think I used Cobalt, teal, I think. So maybe I will stick with the Cobalt teal and just kind of come up. I'm looking at this section right here to get some roundness to that form. So I'll start here. It's a lot darker right where I went. I'll make it darker shortly. More Cobalt teal. And then I'm coming right in here now. Make that round there. I keep touching my palette and I'm worried I'm going to get it on my bird. And there's little tiny dots that look like, oh, what do you call it? The pores almost or something? I'm sure that's not what they are, but okay, I'm going to scoot this over a smidge, go like this so I can see a little more. Rinse my brush. I want to get a little more Cobalt teal. I think my palette is a little bit dirty. I have other blues mixing in, so I'll just dab it with my tissue and come back and get some more Cobalt teal. Make it, you know, a real cobalt. We can always mix it down. I'm looking at my drawing over here. Do you see how right here there's a little bit of a blue thing? And that's where I'm headed right there. So it looks kind of like an icy blue. Oh, it looks like I did lose some of my drawing right there. So before I head over there, rinse my brush. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wet this first. So again, you guys are just sort of watching me develop a painting, and then I'll be watching it live with you is what I decided. So I'm going to get a scrub brush and lift that out because that's rounded there. See that shape right there? That was what I did with the tape. And so I lost that. And then it looks like, does that come down a little rounder? Oh no, I think once I get rid of that or open that up, I'll be fine. So let's start with a lower aggressive form of lifting out paint. I'll go with this, scrub it. Then I'll have to let it dry. Rinse the brush. So I'm basically kind of wetting it at the same time I'm scrubbing it. More clear water. It won't be the same. It won't be as white as the paper, but it should lift up enough to be a believable bump. So it's a good time right now while I'm doing this to talk to you guys about the Snood. The Snood is something that the turkey is very proud of because it's what attracts the female. Did you guys know that? And as you can imagine, the longer the snood, the more a female is attracted. And the males, if they see another turkey with a longer snood, they basically defer to the longer snooded. I don't know if that's a word. It sounds good. The longer snooded turkey, I guess you'd say, right? So let me see, since I'm working on that, let's see if I've lost any other bumps. I think I can darken it in here with that, and it comes down. And I believe it's probably okay. This up here looks like it needs to come in. And I can do that too. Let's try to copy that, or I will. You can see what I'll try to do. That looks a purplish color, and I know the colors I used were manganese blue, and so I think that's probably a manganese blue and maybe the red. So let me find my manganese blue, which is right there, and my pyrrole red, which is on this side. That pyrrole red will knock your socks off. As far as how powerful it is. That looks about right. So I'm going to drop it in, see if I get close. Ta-da! Looks like I got pretty close. So I'm just trying to follow that shape of that bump right there. See how it dips in right there? Right there, it dips in and then it comes up. So I'm just sort of doing that. A little bit more. And also you can see where the end of the paint is, so I could pull it down somewhat. And like I was saying, try not to use the tip of your good brush to do that. Maybe grab another brush that you have that you're not so fond of. And that could even be like a scrubby brush or something like that. And you can pull down some of the edge there. If you have something like that you also need to correct. So more of a stiff bristle, and it's not going to hurt the point that way. And while that's still wet, I'm going to go ahead and try to add a little more paint to that. So don't be too worried about trying to match up paint in this kind of a painting that we've got going, because there's lots of colors, but just something, maybe close if you have a similar situation. So we might not even know any better. And it's a little rounder than what I did, a little bit. I haven't taken off all of the masking for the little hairs, but we can do that later. I don't think I necessarily need to right now because I'm not, that's usually kind of the end thing, unless you have a reason to take it off. Okay, so now I'm not going to go where I plan to with that, so I've got plenty of other places to paint. Let's go ahead and move on down into this blue area. This blue area right here. Okay, well, we see some white. I'm kind of pushed up a little too high because I'm focused so far in. We see a lot of white here. So if we look at the sections, whitish, whitish, and this is a little bit whiter than what it is on what you're showing is a little bit whiter. If I pull this back, it'll show more, but I'm not going to do that because I've got the good focus. Okay, so let's move on. You guys have a photo to look at. You can see it more here when it's further away. So I'm going to do my I'm going to use my Cobalt Teal. And so I'll start with the darkest area and the darkest shape, which is right here. And I'll go there. I'm looking closely at it, looking at my drawing, trying to find, so I think that's the line here. And it's a little bit darker there. So this will be more of the under painting, I'm thinking, the under color. And I'll try to get it a little bit bluer, although I like the way the teal feels right now. These little lines here are the darker lines. And I see this shape here, it kind of pretty much goes right down to here, stays a similar color. If we drop a clear water on it, it'll open that up. You know what I want to do? I kind of am used to looking to my left when I paint. I've got this on my right. I think I'm going to switch it. I'm going to push this over. For some reason I had it the other way right now, and I don't know why. I like it better coming from this side. Just a personal preference. I think maybe because my hand is over it, is my guess. Okay, now I kind of want to keep this wet up in here. Whoops. The edge of my, it had red on it, so it grabbed some red, which is fine. It'll just blend. I could lift it out a little bit more. While this is still wet, so I'm coming down here, looking at the shape. That's the whiter area right there. This is a little darker. Comes up into here, right over here. Let's kind of cheat that up there. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit darker. I'll go into some manganese. I don't want to put that straight down. I had it stacked on something else, so I'll go into manganese. It's not a whole lot different, but it does darken it a little bit, so I'll put it in the places I want it to be a little bit darker. So it's a little bit thicker. I kind of have this going. I'll leave it, just finding those little areas that it's a little bit darker. Mostly in the creases and the folds. So the part that's lighter, that part that's lighter is the part that's catching the light, right? Yeah. And we've got this little creasy here. Okay, looking like a turkey. Looks like it comes up a little bit higher than what I have, so I'll put a little more of the Cobalt Teal, and it kind of comes down a little bit further from the eye too, it looks like to me. This isn't just a straight line. It folds around, so it gets lighter coming out, if you see that, so the darker then it comes out. Okay, I'm gonna go, ooh, that's a dangerous thing. Lots of red on this. That red's a powerful red. PR254. I feel like that's a social security number, or like a superhero, or one of those futuristic PR254. That's my name, that's my number. Okay, back into some of my Cobalt Teal. I'm going to go over where I went before, coming on down, leaving kind of the center. And again, I've drawn a lot of detail. You don't have to paint around all that, but it's just kind of good to know what's happening there. If you put a lot of detail in, it makes it kind of fun. Now I'm looking here, and I feel like that looks like Cobalt Teal a little more. So I think I'll do some Cobalt Teal. Just go right into that, see what we think. But there is some white in here. There's some white right there. So don't cover it all, even though it looks at first glance like, yep, Cobalt Teal. Now if I put this in here, I have to put it somewhere else to make it work together. It would seem weird if that was the only place it had it. So I'll just put some bits and pieces of it here and there. Right, but the impact of it is right there, I think. maybe a little more over here. Bring it on up. Bring it on up. Bring it on up. It looks like that's, see, that goes kind of that dark and then it gets a little bit lighter, then it's dark right there. Yep. Okay, that looks pretty stripy. So how do we fix that? We'll use our clear water on our brush and pull it down. Just be patient when you paint. Say nice things to yourself. Be your own best friend. You know, all these things I've been telling you for months and months and months. Think happy thoughts. Down in here's that, there's another blue area. So just kind of laying the groundwork here. Pretty light, so I'm into the Cobalt Teal. This is pretty white. I'll maybe skip that to make myself remember that it's pretty white. Kind of dark there. And let's look at the beak. Open it up a little bit. That beak looks like it's actually the color I just did right here. It's kind of that color, look, right there. So I may end up thinking about that as I go, but I'll leave it for now because I wanted to have a little more sharp edge. So I'll go ahead and continue on looking at my shape on this. I'll leave it down here so you can see it. So we're kind of coming around here. This looks like the white area that's drawn, comes on through here. I'll push this up a smidgen. And these are the lines it looks like here. See all these lines drawn? So I'm just going to go ahead and lay some paint in right here. And a little bit more. I'm going to have a little more saturation because I like the way how bright blue he looks. And there's along the edge of this, so it rounds it out. And there's more there. I can come along here and make that soften there. Okay, it looks like it rounds more than what I've done right here. See that kind of, I have it stop right there. In the photo, it looks like it rounds a little more. So back into Cobalt Teal. I'm gonna round it up a little more and try to. This doesn't look so bad. That looks like it's actually a little darker, and so does this. Probably if I put a few more spots in there, drop it in there a little bit. Quite a bit darker along the edge next to the beak. I see a little more cobalt look on the top right here above this right here. If you can see that matches that a little bit more. So I'll go ahead and, whoops, think about adding that in there. Maybe go back to the Cobalt Teal. This has a little bit of a ragged edge there. And it's softer than what I've got happening right there. It's a little softer transition. Okay, and as always, you don't want to be tunnel vision. I'm going to zoom out and take a peek with the eye and everything. See what I'm thinking. Once I put the blue in, I think I'll put the blue in right now, that bluish look. And which blue do I want to use? It's sort of purplish. Sort of a purplish blue. It actually is, but I'm going to go ahead and go with more of a, I think I'll try the Cobalt Blue. Real pale. Let me just try that. Well, I'm rethinking it. It's part of it. It just kind of looks more like that. If you look at the color, if you just separate those, we think it's blue, but it looks kind of like that, don't you think? It looks more like that. So I think I will do, I'm going to do manganese, and then I'll put the purpley color on it, the red on top of it. No, you know what? I better mix it together because I just realized, I remembered how strong that is. So let's just go ahead and use that kind of purpley color. Cross our fingers and hope it's right. I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. And I'm just going to try to stay away a little bit from the edge of the, where I've already painted the eyeball. So I don't try to, I want it to stay a little bit sharp. I think that looks better. It might be a little darker, but we'll leave it for now and see where it goes. But it sets it back a little bit. You can probably see that from before what it was. And now I'm going to go with that I'm going to use my opera rose and come around the inside of the eyeball. And I'm not going to do a long line. Let me get closer. I'm going to do little bits of kind of jumping around. So here we go.
Are you live?
Yeah, I am. I'm recording. I'm not in the group.
Oh,
Yeah. This looks a little too red, but I'll cover that up with some blue. And then that'll make it that purpley red. It gets quite a bit lighter up here, so I think I'll just go ahead and go with my blue, and I'm going to go with the manganese blue over the top of that. And I think we'll get a little bit of a red cast to that. Again, I'm just sort of dropping it in. I'm not making one straight line. See if that makes it look a little more realistic. And it gets a little bit bluer there, so I'm okay. And that almost looks white up there, but it's not. I'm going to leave it for now. I feel like it's a little redder still compared to this, so I'll put some more of my opera in right here. I may have to work on these a little more, but we'll see. Oops, I need to get more paint on there. There we go. I want it to feel like that, that has that reddish purple. And then I'm going to soften this too. I don't see that quite as yellow. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and go darker. It's pretty dark underneath, so I will take I'm going to go with Cobalt. And I'll do burnt sienna with Cobalt. And that'll be a little bit grayer. And try to go with a little bit more on the blue side and stay away from that red. Ooh, I'm like Cobalt and burnt sienna. Ooh. It's got a little dark line right, or dark triangle shape here. And then it's darker right here too. So that darker should make the eyeball come out a little bit more. Darker up here still. I'm looking at the shape, I want to keep that. Okay. I didn't paint up there, so I should be okay. Oh, I did paint there though. Okay, that's getting closer. So we're quite a bit darker along in here. You can see that this is still darker than what I have going on there. So I will go ahead, I think I'll use what I just did, more of that. It's a burnt sienna with the manganese, but lean it more toward blue. So the manganese just tones it down a little bit. And now I'm just gonna sort of jump the brush around a little bit here and there. along in the darker area. And right here too. It comes down here, some of the darker parts. Remember I said it's darker here, so it's kind of dried a little bit so I can bring it in. It's coming right to there, this little thing, that little thingy right there. A lot of this is really like a wet into wet look. That's what you'd want to use here because it's soft. And so you can put your paint down, then you can soften the edges, or you can start wet into wet, you can combine them both, all that kind of stuff. Okay, I've got clear water on my brush, and I'll go ahead and come up to these right here. You know what? I think I'm actually going to put some more Cobalt Teal on it and come in here with it, and then when I touch it, they'll blend together. Looks like I lost part of my, see how that's a lot thicker than that right there? So I will use my tissue, see if I don't remember when I last painted that. So I'm gonna use a tissue and see. It won't matter because it's a turkey head and it's not like someone's gonna be able to tell. But I mean, I'm looking at it right now, so I think I might as well try to correct it. I'll let it dry and then maybe I'll see if I can lift it out. So I'm just pull it away again and check it out and see what it's looking like. It's looking interesting to me. Okay, let's move up into the this little area where it's got some folds and things that are coming along here where I was going to start. I was going to come over here. So that's a really dark area. I'll start with the blue. I'll go with my manganese blue. It's a darker of the blue. It's not a dark blue though, but it's the darker of the two I've been using. So I'm going to paint that little shape right there. And then it kind of comes up and around. There's shadow there. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that too. And that won't be the darkest. Now we're going to come along here. A little bit of wiggliness. It rounds up, like I was saying before, it rounds up here. I'm going to do that now, but it's super pale. Right here, the shadow is super pale, that round area. That transition. And then it's pretty blue right there. Back, I'm going to do some of the Cobalt Teal here. I'm coming down here with it. It gets sort of purpley looking right there. Wonder if I should zoom in a little bit for you. I just kind of wanted to see how it kind of, you can tell how it's becoming a form when it's further away. When you're up close, it doesn't show as much. So I'll fade that out a little bit more as it rounds around a little bit. It's super white in the photo, and it'll look like white once we zoom out and everything comes together. So now I'll probably need to unfold this. Let's go like this. Unfold and refold and letting you see it all. Okay. So our turkey eyes coming to life. Yeah, see the white of the eye looks like it needs to be a little bit more. Oh, I know. Besides that, I said I was going to have to put the blue of the pupil in. So I think I'll do that right now. I'll do the blue of the pupil. I think I want to use the ultramarine now. Okay, so hopefully it'll be dry enough. And the shape of the pupil, so it comes from there up. And it's just a suggestion, super, super subtle. See if I can pull that off. And it's probably a little lighter than that, so I took all the water out of my brush, and I'm gonna let my brush pull up the paint while it's still wet and has a puddle. Maybe a little more. It's going to dry lighter though. I can always add more. Okay, that gives it a little more life. And while I'm at it, I think I will go ahead and blend this down a little bit, but I'm not going to use this brush. I'm going to use one that has a little bit less point. Which one do I want to use? I'll use this little scrubby. Oops. Let me turn off my phone. I usually do that, but I didn't. Okay, that's my little message. I like that one. I think it's funny. It makes me laugh. So I'm coming here with this, and I'll pull it down. Looks like I scraped up some of the paint, so now I'm gonna have to do it again. I made it a little bigger now. Let me go back with my brush. Where'd it go? Where's my dark color? Is this the one? Okay. So while it's still wet, I didn't expect that to happen, so we'll just fix it. I kind of like it when I make mistakes and you guys going, oh yeah, look at, she made a mistake. So it's kind of got to be cautious here. I thought it was drier than it was. That was the problem. So now I'm trying to fix that. That looks okay. Okay, so let's go away from that and we'll continue on to this part of the nose, whatever that part is. It's kind of a lighter blue here and it kind of gets into the gray and I said kind of purplish. So let's get with my Cobalt Teal. That can be our initial color. Like, do you remember when we did the portraits and we started with Indian yellow and other yellows? This is kind of what I'm doing here. And then we can always darken it with layer over the top of it. This is forgivable paint. We can lift it out. It's not a very, it's not a staining paint. So it's easy to work with. That's the same with, yellows are kind of tricky, but they're light enough to go over. So I'm tapping the brush around here, just sort of dancing it, tap, 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 dancing it around. Now I'm coming into red. Right there we see some red coming in. So I'll go into the red that I already used, which was Pyrrole Red. And I'll come down right, I'm looking at the shape, right here. I think I'll just come across here, because we're going to add blue to it in areas, and it'll make it purple. And I'm okay with it. In fact, I'd like it to mix up into this. It should stay more red as I come down here. This is defining the beak shape right there. That'll define it. And then it kind of stops right there. In fact, I went a little too far, so I can get my tissue right now. Take some of that out. Okay, but I want to put a little more red in. This looks a little bit more red. Mine, it looks a little bit wimpy. So let's put a little more red. Right to there, I think. And now we'll get some of our blue. We'll stick with the manganese. Probably won't be dark enough, but we'll stick with it anyway for now. It looks like I'm gonna have to put red back on top of it. Okay, so right here, see it gets pretty dark right there? I'm gonna go right into that. Paint it right now. In fact, I think I'm gonna go to this line here. I'm checking out my line. Okay, so that's the line right here. That's the darkest part of the line. So it's right here, and then there's that white space right there. So I want to try to catch that, leave that in between. I may have gone too far, but we'll find out. Okay, back to red. See how this works on top of that. While it's still wet. Don't lose my space, I'm right there. Looks like it gets a little yellowy here, or at least whiter. Darker here. Just letting the water go where the, or let the paint go where I've already put water in. Okay, so back to red on this one right here. And then I'll put blue on top of that. The one you end with is the one that's usually going to show through more. They're mixing on the paper. The colors are mixing on the paper here. Okay, so I won't come down here yet because I want to leave that white space in between. I think I'll skip and come down in here. All this little area here, which is more reddish purple. I see blue there, but I see reddish purple. Let's start with the blue on that. Let's start with a teal to make it look a little different than that one. So we're going with teal here. I'm going to be putting red on top. See what we get. Going right up to that line, looks like the dark line. Check out your photo. I'm studying it just really closely. And I'll stop right here where this reddish area is. It kind of comes down a little bit. Looking at some value, looking at some shape. Keeping it going. That's a little red right there. I see a little red dot that I want to grab. Right there, that little tiny thing right there is a little bit of red. Okay, so right here I'll put my, I think I'm going to do Cobalt, Opera Rose on top of that. So that'll be some of the colors I use in this painting too, Opera Rose. And that just changes it up because it's going to look different than that. Can you see how this is a coolish reddish blue and this is a warm red, very warm. So we'll probably do this, we'll probably add some Indian yellow, or no, maybe we'll probably add quinacridone gold because that's what we've already used up in here. We'll add quinacridone gold with that pyrrole and we'll see what we get. So this looks like a good choice that I did right here. I like that. Okay, and I'm letting that sit. So while that's sitting, I see I need to get a little more red there, which was the original intention. So I'll go back into our pyrrole red, and I'll come right up here and just poke some red in there. It's a little bit too high, but I'll still do it. You know what? I think it needs to be a warmer red than that even. I really do. I think I'm going to put some quinacridone gold down first, and then I'll put the red over that. So here's some quinacridone gold right at the top, and then it goes into blue, but I think that might work. Let's find out. Is that gonna do it? It's a bit much, but I think it's better if that's what I'm trying to get, is the red line there. I think that's better. And I'm going to bring it down kind of on the top of the beak. You know what, why not? Let's just do the whole beak with the quinacridone gold. Let's just do it. Get her done. Don't be waiting around. And the red here, right on top. And then it gets darker at the end, that quinacridone gold. See, it's getting kind of darker right there. Lighter here, darker there at the tip. So we can just maybe see if we just thicken it, because I didn't put it too wet on here. I wonder if I put it here, if that'll just kind of drift out and look like it's rounded. And I think it might. We'll watch that for a second. And we'll watch this for a second. I see it looks like it needs to be a little more blue there. I'm going to use a Q-tip and lift out some of the red. And then I'm going to put some blue right in there, some of the cobalt teal. And that brought up that red a little bit. And so I'm going to use my clear water brush and soften the edge a little bit, because the rest looks okay, I think. Now there's a dark line that goes under this beak, and if this has any water in it still, I can maybe use it. If it's still wet, I can drag that line under it. And this kind of stops right there. Okay, and wondering what color this is up here. I think I could just bring a little bit of that Quin Gold up there, a pale, and not super wet. So it's pale water or pale paint and not wet. Just because it's pale doesn't mean it has to be thick. So I'm gonna bring it up here. Even though the photo doesn't really look like that, I'm gonna do it. And I'll just see what happens. Sometimes you just gotta kind of go for it. It looks a little bit warmer here, a little redder right there. But we'll see if it looks kind of like a beak. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. There's a little bit of a blue right here, pretty prominent looking blue there. So I could drop that in. And that'll just be my straight up cobalt teal right here, and maybe it'll blend together and become a little more bluer. Okay, and the tip of the beak is darker. It looks like it kind of blended a little bit more than what I wanted, and this too needs to blend more. I'm just flattening my brush. I'll come back in and do a little more detail with that. Okay. So here I'm going to add a little teeny smidgen. I mean, I'm talking the smallest smidgen of all of the red right here. Okay, this part looks a little bit odd right here, this line, but I can always fix that. Maybe what I should do right now is just make a better transition, because it's too sharp, even though that is sharp, isn't it? It might be that this part isn't dark enough. So we can wait to darken that, because right now if I darken it, it's just going to blend over because it's wet. Okay, so we'll let that sit. That's what a lot of things are. You just have to let them sit and hang out, like if they're in a hot tub. Let them hang out in the hot tub. This here has a little bit of a shape around it, dark around the edge. So I'll start with the cobalt teal. You see that around that little cell looking thing? We'll call that a cell. It's dark around it. So I'm going to put that, and then I'll put cobalt teal on it. Excuse me, cobalt blue. Cobalt blue. I'm just putting it right where I put the other, and it's going to just follow it right in there. Mix on the paper. Let that sit, and I think I'll do the same thing with this other little section right there. Cobalt teal first. It's okay if they mix together because they're touching. And it doesn't have so much of it there, but I can kind of work it a little bit. That's so that these kind of don't have a white space in between, because they don't have that. Okay, now I'm looking at shapes pretty clearly there. I'm going to let that sit for a minute, then I'm going to come back in with cobalt teal on top, and then that'll pull together a little bit. So back to the cobalt blue on this little section right here, and get that to have a little outline and a little bit of crease in there, a little indent. I like what happened there where I put it because it was still a little bit wet, so I think that looks good. This has a little more of a defined line right there, these little dots, so I might as well do it. And I'm going to use the Cobalt Blue dots. Right here, there's just little dots, dot, 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 like stippling, okay? And they're lighter and darker. They're not all the same. They're not all the same darkness. So that looks like a little more texture. Then I'll do some Cobalt Teal dots. And you just choose which way you want to put them and where you want to put them. Mix them up a bit. This is sort of an even space here. Otherwise, I would say don't do it, but it shows it kind of even. I'll put a few more dots here. So a little bit of stippling. So that's a technique that is another kind of a technique that you can use. You know, I use a lot of wet into wet, but it's good to use more than one technique in a painting. Makes it more interesting. They look like little peppers, little bitty peppers on him. And then we'll want to do the same thing over here. That's probably something you guys can do on your own. You don't have to have me doing little dots with you. You can see where the little dots need to go. I'm using the Cobalt Teal here a little bit. Just little texture dots. Okay, I think that's dried enough on that one area, so I said I'd come back in with Cobalt Teal and hopefully they'll blend together a little bit. Leave some white because some of the area on that is white. Now one thing that I see happening is the edges of these areas are not, they shouldn't be like this edge here. See, it shouldn't be so defined. And same with that one. It shouldn't be the same exact thickness. So what I'll do is I'll come in with my brush and I'm going to lift out an area of it. So get rid of some of the thickness. It is a definite line, but it's not all the same thickness. Let's see, where's this one? That's that. Just lifting out a little bit of paint there so that it's where I see some lighter parts coming through. And this one has a little bit too. Remember I said there's a little bit of white up in here, a lighter. So just lifting out some paint, just kind of looking around at that where it looks a little bit odd right there, a little bit less uniform in the thickness. Still looks a little too much of the same thickness. It's funny how you paint, you know, you put something down, then you take it back up, then you put it back down. Okay, so we'll leave that as it is for now. I see this is what I'll be doing up here as well. That needs to be softened and lifted to make it more round there, and I'll add some more darkness there. The same thing with that one here. We'll do the same kind of idea. This comes up a lot higher. So we want that to look like it's got a shape that comes around. And that needs to be darker in here, but we're still just softening. I'm softening right now. And soften that edge too. And he's starting to come to life, isn't he? It looks like right here needs to be a little softer, a little lighter. And then that's, so let me look at my shape here. That right there is that. And that right there is that. So there's a few lines there. So let me get those down. One thing we can do, try to do, is get a little flat brush. And I've used this scrubby brush before, this eradicator brush that some of us got from Rosemary. See the flat on that? Uh-oh, dogs are gonna bark. I'm gonna mute myself here because we've just got a delivery truck coming up. They're not here yet, but she's almost here. Oh, she got away with it. So I didn't have to mute myself. We'll see. If they start barking, I will mute myself. But for now, somehow they didn't notice. What a surprise. Okay, so I was talking about this area right here that have some lines. Let me zoom in a little bit. So right here, those right here. Those lines. So I will go in with some darker blue. I'm just taking a blue off of my palette. I'm not even really too concerned what the blue is. And I'm going to follow the lines that I've drawn, which are like right in here, and just sort of wiggle them a little bit. Looks like that one is a line. It comes on down up here, and it goes up into this kind of area here. And it comes down here. So I'm multi-using this scrubby type of a brush. And really, you can use your brush for whatever you want, as long as it does the job. We were using cards the other day. I see some more little lines here. And the more organic looking thing you can use is the better. And I'm coming up into here, a little more little. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so I've got that here, and I see this line here, and I see kind of one going over here, right? Yeah, talking to myself. You guys should be too. Talking to yourself when you paint. Well, especially when I'm trying to teach as I'm painting. Okay. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to jump back up to the beak. And same brush, since I happen to have the scrubby, I'm going to try to make these two come together. So it doesn't look like there's a separation between the beak. Okay, now under the beak, if you look right here, it gets really pretty red. It gets about that red. So let's go with our Quin Gold. And it's darkest under, there's this little area where it comes together. It gets really dark right there, but right here it's pretty much of that orangey red color. Yellow toward, if you look at it, it's yellow up here, but redder down there. So this is the straight up Quin Gold. I can go right to that black dot or that black line, because all that's going to do is make it darker. I'm going to let that sit for a second. And then I need to analyze here. There's that white line right there, then it's dark, and then that dark comes over. So we used Manganese Blue on that, so we're going to kind of match that a little bit. And I will leave that white line, that I'm saying white, but I mean light. So I'm going to leave the white of the paper there. I'll probably darken it, but right now I'm going to leave it. Because for whatever reason, there's some light being reflected on that. Then I'm going to come right up to where they meet. There's this, it goes dark, light, dark, and they meet. I'm going to avoid this right here because it doesn't get green down here. If I did that, it would get green. And then it gets lighter, kind of a reddish there, and then it comes dark again. So if I keep that without red, if I keep that without blue on it, it might turn more red. And then this turns into it. It kind of comes together again. So this whole thing kind of comes together right here, this little section. You guys see what I'm talking about? You can always come back in with the second layer, which was probably going to be what we're going to have to do. And then this gets darker all the way back here. I'm going to put some ultramarine blue on this because I want it to get darker. It's quite a bit darker than that. An ultramarine blue, I'll mix it with the red, and it should get pretty dark. Let's see what happens. It's just sitting on the surface of the paper, so I'm putting the red down right now. The water, I don't know if you can tell, it's just sitting up there, but it is. So now I have red in my brush for the most part. I'm going to come down to the bottom, leave that white in between. And I'm going to come underneath of it with the red in the brush. I know that looks weird right now. It doesn't look anything like the painting, but we're going to try to get it that way. Okay, so in here, I just want to put red right in that center line. Well, I mean, I got the white, the right, and the, so let's see, I want to put red right here. Okay, I know it looks a little bit weird, but we're going to give it a chance. This comes back further. So I'll go back into my blue. See, it comes back into this little area. There's a line that comes around, and it comes back into there, that darker color. And then it gets kind of lighter right here, a lighter red. Okay, so now I'm going to go with my red on the bottom of the beak. It should have maybe dissipated a little bit, so I'm going to put it down there. Should have absorbed a little bit. And this little line here needs to be darker too. Now if I touch these right now, everything's going to go together, so I'm waiting. I could probably blend this a little bit. And then I might bring this down just a little bit. Okay. It looks like on top there's a little bit more of a blue cast. Like I said, I've already tried to do that up there, but I think it might need a little bit more blue, so I am going with my, no, I'm going to do manganese blue. You will need to decide on yours what color you think, but I think manganese blue is probably okay here. But I'm going to leave a little separation here between those. Just a little bit, because that's super wet right there. If I accidentally touch it, it shouldn't be any big deal. And then this should be about the same darkness right there. That darkness should be about the same. So I'm going to do my ultramarine blue. Give it that shadow so that pops over this part of the snood. The snood. So I'm using ultramarine blue right now. And it's not an even, it's bumpy. So I'll try to find the edge of that. And it comes down a little bit. I'm just finding shapes and value and trying to use color to do it, which gets a little bit tricky, but we know the value does the work and color gets all the credit. Okay, go into blue or red, and we'll drop it in. See if we can get that dark reddish purple that I'm looking for with those two colors. Whoops. Again, this is more red here, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it down. I might try not to touch it up here, because I just kind of want that little red line to define it. A little bit there, comes down. And red more under here. I think I can touch it now. So they're not entirely separate. Clear water on the brush and trying to push that up a little bit. Okay, I got a hard edge going on here, and do I want it? Not necessarily, so I'll soften that. Now there is a line that's coming here, a darker line, and it's sort of a purpley line, so if you mix up a purple color on your palette, and it should be dry enough. Right there, see that line that's coming out? This turkey's all about some texture, and it's dark right in that hole right there. While I have it, I might as well do it. Another little line there. And there's a little, I can't do it right now because this is wet, but there is a dark thing right there, and then a light thing. Okay, after this dries, I'll soften some edges, but if I soften them right now, it's gonna just pull right on out, and I don't want that to. So now I'm gonna go ahead and think about this line right here attaches to that line. Right, so I've still got some purple over here. I will go do that. What do you guys think? Isn't it cute? Well, you know, cute. I think it's kind of cute. This is where it starts to get red, so I stopped. And it's pretty much darker right there. There's a real dark area right underneath this thing. So I'm gonna get more blue. Just whatever blue I happen to have on the palette because I wanted it to be dark. So now I want to put some red into this. I want it to be more red. So it kind of looks like that red is extending into it. And I'm also going to try to bring this, wait, I think I'll bring a little more blue into under this beak here. Tiny little brush, tip of the brush. Try to stay under. And I want to bring up some, I want to have these somehow join a little bit, so there's a little more. Right now it looks like they're entirely separate, like this beak is not part of that beak. So I want to put some more softness there. And that looks pretty good. So I can't do too much more detail on that. This looks like I might be able to soften it now, but I'm going to soften it with a little red on my brush, not just clear water. I'm going to soften it with a little bit of red on my brush. And that goes right into the red there. Gets a little bit darker in one little bit. So they look kind of like they join together. Looks like that's a little darker right there too. The darker underneath will pop this part forward. So dark recedes, light comes forward. So don't be afraid of the dark. Looks like that needs to have a little bit more too. Working a little bit on details here as we go. Darken that again. A little bit of softness going to need to be happening here. See if it's too early for it. Maybe not. Okay. Now at this part of the beak, there's a tiny little bit of darkness right around here. Like right at the tip, it kind of has a little darkness right there. Okay, that's round one of the beak and the bird's whole look. This looks like it has a little dot of of blood here. I better move that out. But I still like the red there that's going on. Okay, so let's move down and I'll paint the, what time is it? 1 hour and 10 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna paint, I'm just gonna go with the straight red. And I'm gonna come down here and just sort of follow the line under this. See that right there? I'm gonna follow the line under it, under the beak. And it's coming down right there. Now there's some areas that come out with red, and they're like little, I don't know, little segments of red, I guess you could say. And then it gets purplish blue on the top half of this. So that's what we'll do. We'll do what we see. More red over here, around the beak. Okay, and then they'll get some of that purplish blue, which I'm going to go with the Cobalt turquoise, Cobalt teal. Okay, right on top of the beak. A little bit more. Let's just make this stand out a little bit more, because he's proud of this snood. I feel like we have to paint it in a proud manner. They blend together, make a little more purple down here at the bottom. And a little bit right here. The blue, I see blue down there. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit, because this red looks a little bit different, put a little of the cobalt, the quinacridone in it, just a little bit on top of that red. And then I'm gonna go back in and put more red. A lot darker under the beak. So I'm gonna get red with ultramarine blue. I'm gonna put it right under the beak, right here. And it goes under the beak as well, both beaks. In order for this to be receding, yeah, I think that looks good. Okay, this right here, I feel like it's encroaching. So I'm gonna get a Q-tip. You can use a Kleenex or whatever, but I feel like that's encroaching, and I think I can get rid of it. So you gotta babysit things. Water gets a little bit bossy. Okay, so I can kind of visualize the beak is coming forward a little bit. The value still needs to be a little bit darker on this snood thing, and it's turning less red, so I want to get back to my red. Put my red back in there. Let it be the top color. Kind of trying to leave some whites in there. Yeah, now I'm just sort of studying the whole thing. I'll take it out a little bit. It looks pretty good. I'm not too shabby on it. I think I'll use some pink upper rose on this. Let's just bump it up a little bit. And since I used it there, I'll probably want to put it up here, because they're the same parts. And I see it's a little bit blue under here, though. I really see that where I want to get that blue there. Right under the beak. No white there. There's no, well, there's kind of on the end of the beak, there's a little bit of a yellow, so I'm going to come back and do that. But right there, I want to make it clearly blue. Okay, and I think I'll take some manganese blue and just go along the edge. Another thing I'm thinking about doing is these little hairy things that are sticking out. I'm thinking I want to make those blue. Some of them, not all of them, just some of them. Okay, now that that's kind of just sitting there, it looks like it's okay. I don't think it's too bad. We'll be getting the rest of it done before you know it. So for now, we're gonna let that sit and kind of hang out, see what we think. Looks like here, my tape got a little bit wild, so I'm going to use a really pale cobalt teal because that's sort of what I have here. Maybe mix it with a little bit of the manganese. I'm going to kind of come in here, maybe a little more cobalt or quinacridone gold. I said wrong. Quinacridone gold. We'll try to match that color a little bit. See if I have it. Looks a little better. So I can do a little scrubby action on that while I've got that paint in there, and it should be fine. Looks like a little more yellow there. Just drop it in. And it feels like a blue is kind of coming across. You can't really tell that from there, but I can see it looks like it needs a little bit of a something like that. Okay, I like it. I think it's cool. I'm gonna get rid of that here as well. Make it come right on in. I think I'll put some water, clear water, right where I have the white areas, and it's going to push around the paint. And we'll see what we get afterwards. So see how the beak comes a little bit more forward with that dark there? I'll probably come back in and darken underneath again. This is not entirely white. If you compare it with this, it's just lighter, like I was saying. It's more about that color. So if you look at it, it's about the same. Mine is really white, so it looks a little bit odd. But so what I'll probably do is let that sit, and then I'll come in. Well, actually, I could probably do it right now. I can just soften that right now and show you. So I'll use a little bit of color on my brush. And so you see how that stands a little bit more all by itself. It looks like it comes out a little bit, but it's not entirely white. And then I believe this probably needs to be a little bit darker under it. I'll go ahead and do it right now. Using some of that purple I have. Actually, I'll get a little more of a blue in it. And we'll see what that does. I don't want to touch it, but I just want to be under it a little bit. Again, they kind of join together here. And it appears they're a little bit darker under here too, maybe a little more red. Okay, time to say goodbye. And we'll work on some correcting later, but I think he looks pretty good, like he's taken shape. And I'm gonna sing you guys a song. So thanks for hanging out with me and painting with me. I'm going to click over, because you gotta see a face when someone sings. All right, so I hope you had fun doing that. Here we go. Let me call you artist, I'm in love with you. Let me hear you whisper that you love you too. Keep the water flowing in your red, yellow, and blue. Let me call you artist, I'm in love with you. Let me call you artist and hear you say it too. Let me hear you shout it out. I'm an artist too. Keep your paintbrush moving in your Quin gold and manganese blue. Let me call you artist, 'cause you are. 1, 2, woohoo! All right, you guys, I hope you had fun with that. We're gonna keep going. We'll see you again next time. This is session 2. I will be recording session 3 before you know it. All right, see you soon. Bye.